Person cannot conduct himself in a lipped manner. Literally means being a smooth talker. Meaning you speak in a way where, as a result of the expression and the choice of words, you actually not being fully upfront in terms of what your intention is. This is the understand. The word chalok means glib-lipped and seductive manner. You should not speak outwardly. You're saying one thing, and in your heart you have other intentions. You have to be fully honest that what you say, that's what you mean. Tocha kebaro. Your inside should be like your outside. What appears on the outside, that's what your inside should be. Your outside, your words, your behavior should reflect what your intent is. Should not be two-faced. What does it mean? That what's in your heart, the mouth is an expression of what's in your heart. The words, the Rambam, the way he speaks, every word is chosen to give us an understanding exactly what we're talking about. He says a person should not speak glib-lipped. Cholak means smooth talker, and in a seductive manner. What does that mean? What is the concept of seductive? Seductive means that I draw you in for whatever purpose I want to draw you in. We speak about the power of persuasion. Power of persuasion, there's nothing wrong with it, as long as I'm trying to persuade you to do the right thing. But if I'm not trying or want to persuade you to do the right thing, I'm using the speech for what purpose? The glib-lippedness, the seduction. The word seduction has a negative connotation. I'm seducing you. The only reason why you're agreeable to give it any degree of moment of attention or value is because you're attracted to it. There's a seductive edge to it. You should not use the power of speech. You should not speak in a smooth manner and seductive. Seductive is even to a greater degree. A greater emphasis on misleading the other person. Then he speaks, and you should not speak in a way where you're two-faced. What you say one thing, but you mean something else. In your heart, you have another intention. But rather, it should be tocha kibaro, that your inside should be like your outside. That you speak exactly what you mean. The mouth is the expression of the heart. Elaborate. Okay. Now, I'll tell you what touched me. We read in last week's reading, in terms of building of the Mishkan, that one of the vessels of the Mishkan was the ark, the golden ark. And the Torah tells us the ark was of gold on the inside and the outside. And what was the ark? It was the repository for the tablets, the Hilchos, the broken tablets, and the Torah. So what does the ark represent? It's the receptacle to contain the Torah. And what's the Torah say? What is the model of the ark? It's gold on the outside, it's gold in inside. So what's the takeaway? The Talmud tells us, Kol Talmud Chochem shein tochel kebaro. The exact same words the Rambam uses here. A Talmud Chochem, a Torah sage, where his inside is not consistent with his outside, he's not a Talmud Chochem. A person can be a walking encyclopedia, instant recall anywhere in the Talmud, anything. But if his actual behavior is not integrated into what he believes and what he knows, he's not a Torah sage. You know what he's called? He's called a Talmudic scholar. He's a walking encyclopedia. Talmud Chacham means that he's fully integrated with his knowledge. Tocha Kibaro. The Rambam says, when you speak, what you say, that's what you mean. That's Tocha Kibaro. Now, the Gemara tells a story. Brurio was the wife of Rameir, the great Rameir Baal HaNes, the great Torah sage, who was a student of Rabbi Akiva and a student of Rabbi Shmuel. He was known as Rab Meir, Rab Noroi. He was the ultimate elucidator. He was able to elucidate the Torah at a special level. So there was a student who was studying in the study hall, and he was not articulating the words. He was like eye reading them. So his wife, Bruria, was the daughter of Rav Hanania ben Trajan, who's one of the 10 martyrs who were killed by the Romans. And she was a very learned woman. And she sees him sitting, learning, but he's not verbalizing, he's not articulating the words. She gave him a kick, meaning she rebuked him. What did she say? She said to me, you're wasting your time. Why? Because the verse says, Chayim hi lemotzaehim, that when you study Torah, it brings life to those who articulate it. Torah is only effective and impacts on the person only if you verbalize it. Meaning the power of speech, man was endowed with the power of speech for the sake of that, to articulate the Torah. You understand? So let's talk now. Why was the power of speech given to a person? For the articulation of Torah. And what's the objective of that? To become the Torah sage, that you should be the repository for Torah. And what is the repository for Torah? Tocha Kibaro. That outwardly, it's not enough to look the model, you have to be that. That's Tocha Kibaro. So the Rambam says the power of speech that you have, how should you utilize that power of speech? What you say is what you mean. Also, the exact same concept. If the power of speech was given to study the Torah, and the Torah, when you study, it has to be integrated into you. So what does that mean? That means you can't be two-faced. What you say is what you mean. What you study is what you absorb. It goes hand in hand. Now, I once said, we learned this in the laws of Talmud Torah, based on the Gemara, when a child begins speaking, what are the first words you're supposed to teach your child? 2 psukim, 2 verses. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, v'rosho kilas Yaakov. The Torah was commanded us by Moshe. It is the heritage of the congregation of Jacob. That's the first words. And the second words you teach him, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Those are the second words you teach a child when he begins speaking. When he begins developing his power of speech, those are the words you teach him. You don't teach him, Mother Goose rhymes. No, you don't teach him. You teach him, these are the words. So I ask the question just simply. The child is now just beginning, the brain function is able to begin speaking. The child has no understanding what he's saying. It's just mouthing words that the parent says, the child is able to mouth the same words. So the first words the child mouths is Torah tziva lanu Moshe, and the second words is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which is a declaration of your belief in God. But what's the value of this? Does it really make a difference? What if the child doesn't understand what the words mean? So what's the value of teaching the child these words? These should be the first words which he utters, which he articulates. That's the question I asked. The word that touched me says, the Rambam says, when you speak, it should be tocho kibaro. That your inside should be like your outside. Genuine. What you say is what you mean. That the mouth is an expression of your heart. Those are the words Rambam used. The Talmud uses the ark was gold on the inside, on the outside. To teach me that a Torah sage, it's not enough to behave like a Torah sage. You have to be fully integrated and genuine in what your knowledge is integrated, and that becomes your behavior. Okay? So it's the same words. So I'm explaining that because the power of speech was given specifically only to study the Torah. And this is the verse which the wife of Rameir had mentioned to the student who wasn't articulating the words, and that's why she said you're wasting your time, because it only impacts on you when you express it. So how do you have to utilize that power of speech? Whatever you say, you have to mean what you say. You can't be two-faced. Because Torah, when you study it, you can't be two-faced. What you say is what you are. That's what I was touched. I'm saying like this. Why do you teach these two verses to the child when he begins speaking? Now, the brain function, when does a child begin speaking? When the brain function starts developing to a point that it is able to speak. So it's part of the brain function. When the brain function is touched by those words are innately holy because they're words of the Torah. So that means you're sanctifying the brain function. It has nothing to do with understanding the words. Those words are innately holy words. You want to sanctify the brain function when it comes to the power of speech. What is the brain? How is it being utilized from the very inception of that function? Torah Tzivah Moshe, Moshe Kilas Yaakov, Shema Yisrael, which is the fundamentals of the totality of Torah and God. That's the reason. It's the same idea. The power of speech is given for what? To serve God. How do we serve God? Through study of Torah. The study of Torah only comes through articulation, the power of speech. So therefore, the bedrock of that power of speech starts when the brain function begins developing to be able to speak. Therefore, when the child begins speaking, you teach him those two verses, Torah Tzivah Moshe and Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Elo Tochel Kibaro. What does that mean? Tochel Kibaro. Inyan Shebelev Hu Adavar Bepeh. What's in your heart, that's exactly what's in your mouth. Now, we find that there was a tremendous amount of strife between Yosef and his brothers, which ultimately led that he should be sold into slavery. And Yaakov grieved for 22 years, believing that his son was mauled by an animal. You know, the relationship became so terrible. It says they would not speak to him. They could not speak in peace with him. So Rashi cites the Midrash. What do you mean? Say good morning. At least have social graces, right? No. Lo dibru imo b'shalom. They would not speak in peace, peacefully with him. That was positive. Why? They were not echad b'leiv echad b'peh. They felt him. They despised him for what he was. They didn't want him to think otherwise than that. If they could have spoken glibly to him and allow him to believe that he is somebody they value, never. Their behavior was lo dibru imo b'shalom. They would not speak to him in peace. They behaved that they could not tolerate his existence. Why is that so positive? You know why? As bad as it was to be two-faced, you know what that's called? That's called falsehood. That's called falsehood. Yaakov taught his children, you have to be truthful. So it's not only truthful in speech, but even in behavior. To be two-faced, it's the farthest thing from truth. You have to be truthful. If you have relevance to God, God's signet is truth. The moment you behave two-faced, you have no relevance to God. Even though I'm doing it for the sake of what? Not to have this contentious outer relation. No. Whatever consequence there is, bad feeling, doesn't make a difference. I will not assume that double, whatever it is, dual connotation. Outwardly, I look like your friend. In my heart, I cannot tolerate your existence. Those were the sons of Yaakov. And that's positive. The Torah is revealing it. That's positive. Same idea. Can't be two-faced. And especially a power of speech to say one thing and you mean something else. It's not acceptable because speech is Torah. Torah is truth. So if you damage the tool through which you deal with truth, you're off. You're off. The Chofetz Chaim gives explains something with an allegory. Let's say Rembrandt is one of a kind of an artist, and he could express his ability with paint and a brush. The brush is not a clean brush. The paint is what? Is third quality paint. As much as Rembrandt is able to express himself on canvas with the paint and brush, if he doesn't have the quality brush, and the brush hasn't been cleaned, and the paint is inferior quality paint, what you're going to see on that canvas is not Rembrandt. Maybe a semblance of something that may have potential, but you're not going to see it. The power of speech is a gift. If you use that power of speech and you use it in a manner which is not truthful, you're damaging that power of speech. That power of speech is not able to bring about the result. It was given specifically for the sake of Torah, which is Tocha Gebaro. Here you use the power of speech. Outwardly, you're saying one thing, and inwardly, you mean something else. Therefore, you're actually corrupting it. You're damaging it. It's like you have a dull knife. The knife is meant to cut, and it has to be sharp and keen, but the way you've maintained it, you've destroyed it. Well, it has potential. It can be rehabilitated, but until it's rehabilitated and refurbished, it doesn't. Same thing with the power of speech. And therefore, as a result of this, why is Lashon Hara so terrible? What have you done? You've taken the power of speech, which is meant to be for the ultimate, which is for Torah, and you invested it in something which is negative and ominous and terrible, which is evil. To use the power of speech to destroy other people, to speak negative has no constructive value. Torah is the ultimate constructive. The world was created for that. That maintains existence. And you take that same ability, invest it in something which is the ultimate destructive. Rather than constructive, it's destructive. In the same realm, in the spiritual realm.